In this video, we're going to discuss how to run programs when you're not using BlueJ. In particular, we're going to introduce the main method, which all standalone Java programs require. We shall also illustrate the Java application launcher. We shall use the Zool project for this demonstration, although the principles apply to any program. If you wish to run programs outside BlueJ, you'll need to configure your computer so that the Java application launcher is accessible. That topic is beyond the scope of this video, but there's plenty of information available on the web to help you with such setup. We know that in order to run the Zool game within BlueJ, we have to create a game object and then call play on it. In other words, the game class contains the starting point for this program. However, the steps we would have to go through to run a different program will be different and be distinctive of that particular program. For instance, to run the tech support program, we would create a support system object and call start, while on the house project we would call the draw method on a picture object. Every program will be different in terms of which method to call on an object of which class. In order to simplify this situation for arbitrary programs, Java requires a specific method name for the starting point of every program. That starting point has to be called main, hence it is often referred to as the main method. Java programs outside BlueJ are run by the Java application launcher. When the launcher goes to run your program, it will expect to find a main method. BlueJ does not require that programs define a main method to be run, but you need to be aware of how to write this method if you want to run programs outside BlueJ. The main method is a static method rather than an instance method. This means that there doesn't actually need to be an object of its containing class for the launcher to be able to call it. For that reason, a common convention is to write a class that just contains the main method for the program. The name of this class is then passed to the launcher so that the launcher can call the main method it contains. This is a convention that we shall use here. So to turn our Zool project into something that can be run outside BlueJ, we shall add a new class to it, called GameMain. The name of the class can be anything, but it's a reasonable convention to include main in its name to signal that this class contains the program's starting point. Because there will not actually be a GameMain object when this program is run, we shall leave out the constructor. So we have a complete empty class body to which we shall add the main method. The return type and parameter list of the main method are stipulated by the language. The only choice we have is over the name of the parameter. The header tells us that the method will not return a result. It is static, so it can be called as GameMain.main, and it receives an array of strings as a parameter. We shall not make use of that at first, but explain its purpose later. In the body of the main method, we essentially have to reproduce the steps we would take if we were running the program interactively in BlueJ. In other words, we need to create a game object, and then call the play method on it. And that's it. We can see how this works, still within BlueJ, by calling the method from the game class in the class diagram. We can do this because it's a static method. We're asked to provide the method's parameters, but we shall leave that as an empty array. As we would expect, the game plays as before. So what difference does this make outside BlueJ? Here we have open what is called a command window or terminal window. It's located in the project folder, as we can see from the list of files. This window has nothing to do with BlueJ, it's one of the host computer's applications. This is where the exact means for running programs will differ from system to system, and you will need to set up your system properly to be able to reproduce what we do here. If the system is set up correctly, we shall be able to start the launcher by typing Java. However, the launcher will want to know which class contains the main method. Firstly, let's show you what happens if you give it the name of a class that does not contain a main method. We see exception in thread main java.lang.nosuchmethoderror main, which means that class doesn't have an appropriate main method. So let's give it the correct class this time. and the program runs, as we've seen before. Note that it's running directly in the command window we ran it from. There's no separate BlueJ terminal window brought up, because that was part of BlueJ, and BlueJ is not involved at all here. The game works exactly as before. Note that, depending on your system setup, you might have to give the launcher a little more information on the command line. This is called the class path, but we won't go into the reasons behind that here. Let's go back to BlueJ and find out about the main method's array parameter. The idea of the parameter is to enable the program to receive additional information when it starts up. For instance, we might want to tell the program what the player's name is so that it could use it during the game. Let's assume that if the array parameter contains a single item, then it's the player's name, and let's print a hello message, purely for illustrative purposes. Now when we run it, we add the player's name after game main. Each word written after the name of the class on the command line would be stored in a separate element of the array passed into the main method. In summary, we've seen that in order to be run outside BlueJ, a Java program must have a main method. A program is run by passing the name of the class that contains the main method to the Java application launcher. The main method must be called main, and it must be static and void. The method must have a single parameter, which is an array of string. Text on the command line following the class name is stored in this array one string per word.